I'm so glad that you're here at the Love Inspired Leadership podcast. And if you're here for the first time, I absolutely am so honored to host this podcast and interview extraordinary human beings who have chosen love over fear, over doubt, over hardship, over trauma, and have circled back to what love is, what love does, and what love represents. Because to me, every single human being on the planet has an opportunity to be a love inspired leader. And that's in your own personal life, that is in your professional life, in every single role and responsibility that you hold that matters. So I just want to graciously thank you for taking the time to be here to meet my incredible guest today. And today's theme is really about leading when life interrupts us. You know, it's leading from that place of courage, clarity, and love, even in the midst of crisis, because that, to me, is the most important, potent decision in being decided to choose love over fear. So, my name is Carolyn. I'm so thrilled to introduce you to Deb. How do you say your last name? Is it
Krier.
Career?
Mm-hmm,
Okay,
mm-hmm,
wonderful. And she is truly a strategic cancer advisor for business leaders. She's a purposeful, passionate entrepreneur and really a authentic, powerful voice for resilience in the most human moments in leadership. So through her Trying Not to Die dot live, Deb supports high performing professionals navigating cancer while still carrying this incredible weight of being a leader and taking responsibility and to understand their identity. Oh my goodness, I love it. I love it, Deb. And her journey reminds us that even when life gets interrupted by anything and everything that we had originally prepared, planned, and tried to control, it's love, clarity, and courage that can truly lead us forward. And I believe back home to who we are. So, in the audience, if you've ever wondered how to keep showing up when life feels completely overwhelming, hard, and impossible, this conversation is to meet you honestly, exactly where you're at. And our intention here today is to bring you our heart centered wisdom in the mature years that we have lived, both Deb and I, to really impact your life. So, where we're going to start is Deb, I want to start in the concept of transformation and new beginnings. So, uh, the way I look at this, it's like the intersection of identity meets reality. So, you know, you've spent decades helping organizations tell their stories. So, can you take us back to the moment when your story was dramatically changed in a way that you never anticipated or expected?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. This is I am just truly honored to be on your podcast. I did listen to some of your other interviews and they're phenomenal. Just absolutely incredible. And so it truly is my honor to be here. You mentioned that I helped people tell stories. Well, I'm a marketing person, right? And a communications person, have been most of my career helping people tell their stories. Some of which I worked for the American Cancer Society, right? And I also work for an oncologist, so I know just enough to be dangerous about all of this. But it was about 10 and a half years ago. I went in for my annual checkup, had my mammogram, and they called and said, "You've got to come back." And, like I said, I had enough experience to go, uh-oh, it wasn't that I didn't smile pretty. And so I went back, and what they said was I had tiny little specks not a lump, not a bump, anything like that. In fact, the computer saw it. And I did a little research. Now, folks, watch Dr. Google. This is not really what we want to get, right? But
No.
I did enough research to know what was going on. And it's something that happens in all mature women as our bodies change and the hormones change. We get these little speckly specks, but mine had started to gather, which is very rare, but I'm a very special person. And so my initial diagnosis was stage 0, and we didn't think too much about it. Wasn't anything. I mean, I was annoyed, but it wasn't. It was, hey, we're just gonna watch this. Then things progressed, and we ended up taking, actually going into surgery and removing lymph nodes, and 8 of 12 lymph nodes were positive for cancer. So I went from stage 0 to stage 3 in a 10-second spurt, right? As it took her to tell me, I thought, oh, this is much worse. And then eventually the diagnosis is that it's stage 4. But I distinctly remember, even though this is 10 and a half years ago, looking at my doctor and saying, I'm sorry, I don't have time for this. She, of course, looked at me like, silly girl. But you mentioned the word control. And I think that is one of the biggest things with any type of serious diagnosis. The first thing we think is we're not in charge. We're losing control. And that's, I think, worse than actually thinking, here's what's going on. It's how can I, get back under control? And one of the things that I tell people is you have to pick what's going to work for you. Now I chose the traditional route, right? I was going to do chemo, I was going to do surgery, and then I was going to do radiation. And fate said, you're going to have lots of complications. But yeah, it was, but if somebody says, that's not for me, okay.
Yeah.
That is, and the nice thing is we now have so many options that we can choose from, both from, the traditional, the Eastern, all sorts of different things. I know that you do hypnotherapy. I went to a therapist during part of this, a hypnotherapist, because she helped me with my pain level. And, because I wasn't big in taking all those icky drugs, and what she did was absolutely incredible. And so it's how are we going to get our lives and then, our businesses back under control?
Oh my goodness. So your story has sparked so many incredible ideas of where I want to go next.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to really pause here for a moment, and I want the audience to resonate with me, and they will agree with what I'm going to say. Your spirit is absolutely beautiful, Deb. Your inspiration, your enthusiasm for life is contagious. It is so refreshing to witness someone that has had a life changing diagnosis to have the state of perspective that you do. And I just really want to acknowledge that. I want to capsulate that. And anybody who's listening here, if you have just been diagnosed or if you've been through the journey, this podcast is for you. Or
Mm-hmm.
if you have someone that
Mm-hmm.
has been on the
Mm-hmm.
path and the
Right,
journey
right.
or
Mm-hmm.
just diagnosed,
Mm-hmm.
please share this with
Mm-hmm.
them, because it's here's the idea about control is that what I find fascinating about life is to have the most control is actually to make the decision to surrender and
Mm-hmm.
accept what is. Would
Right.
you agree
Mm-hmm.
with that, Deb?
Yeah. Yeah, and we go through a myriad of emotions, feelings. A big one during this process is grief,
Yeah.
right? Our lives, even if it's a fairly simple basic diagnosis, our lives have changed. You're always thinking, when is it coming back? They call, like a lot of people will say they have scanxiety, right? The once a year, whenever that they get their scans until they get the results, they got little heart palpitations and all of those things. And anger is a huge thing. There's also guilt, right? What did I do? And
What
I
did
don't
I
care.
do to deserve
Yeah.
this?
Oh
Why
yeah.
why
Yeah.
is why is
Mm-hmm.
this happening
Mm-hmm.
to me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm. Right. And I only asked that once, and was and I was going in for, well, I like I said, I had multiple complications. I my first chemo just about killed me. I ended up with septic shock, which 75-ish% of the times is fatal. And my doctors were arguing over how fast I was going to die that day. And I mean, you talk about lack of control, but I remember thinking, excuse me, I get to vote here. And
Oh, I love
but
that.
yeah,
Hold on a second.
yeah.
Hold on. We got to get that. We got to grab it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I want to grab that.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on a
Mm-hmm.
second here.
Mm-hmm.
I have a say in this.
Mm-hmm.
This is my
Yes.
life.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Mm-hmm.
having a
Mm-hmm.
conversation
Right.
whether I'm living or
Mm-hmm.
dying.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a
Mm-hmm.
second here.
Right. Right.
I get to have the say
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And they were out in the hall, and my husband says it was a little different, but he said that was kind of the gist of the conversation. And so yeah, I had multiple. I was in the hospital for a little over 7 weeks, in and out of ICU, in and out of surgery. The septic shock has done far more to my body than the cancer probably ever will.
Yeah.
But you know. As much as I could. Now, I was a very, very sick little kid, right? And so, but as much as I could, I still wanted to make my staff laugh. Because they have really hard jobs, right? I had one, and oh, I absolutely loved her. She was, the probably the lowest person on the totem pole as far as the medical people were concerned. She every day requested, because they all changed, they all moved around. Every day she said, I have to have her. I have to have her. And when I
Isn't that
left,
wonderful?
yeah, when they finally discharged me, she came back. That she wasn't working that day, and she came back to tell me goodbye. And it was just
Okay,
it.
so let's grab that what you
Mhm,
just did.
mhm,
Okay,
mhm,
so let's extract
mhm,
that. Let's take a focus on that.
mhm,
So you brought humor
mhm,
to people who served you
mhm,
in a
mhm,
very vulnerable
mhm,
position you were
mhm,
in.
mhm,
And you set your mind on the focus of
mhm,
creating joy
mhm,
and
mhm,
humor for that staff in
mhm.
the hospital.
Right. Now, I also know that there were times where I was a cranky little person. I mean, there was a lot of pain,
Yes.
all sorts of things,
Yeah.
and and
Wow.
so there were times where I was not a happy camper, but I also did what I could to make sure that I was in charge. Right now,
Yes.
my mom, I am an only child, and at that point, she lived in Kansas. She has since passed away, but she came out, and she and my husband were obviously the primary caregivers. My aunt, her sister, is a retired nurse practitioner, but then she was still practicing. And so she came out a couple of times, and then I had friends. I was never in that hospital room alone.
Wow.
And that comes back to that word love, right?
It does.
And I mean, that was what was so incredible. Of course, the staff loved it because it meant they didn't have to check on me all the time and all sorts of things. But it was, how could how could I make things easier for them? And just things like, they'd say, you can ask for X. I'm like, why? I don't need it. you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I did things, like I said, control, right? At one point, I had, I think, 10 different doctors, that came in every morning. And I was kind of in and out of consciousness and all sorts of things. And they'd come in and they'd blah, blah, and then they'd leave. And when I was more conscious, I distinctly remember and telling them, "Wait, I need you to stand at the foot of my bed." I had this giant window. When you live in the hospital, you get the best room, and and they would go look out the window, and I said, "No, I need you to stand at the foot of the bed so I can see you." They all did. Nobody questioned it, right? And I said, "And before you go any further, and every time you come in here, I need to know your name and your specialty, because that's going to make a difference as to what I'm asking you."
Yes.
And I had one who said, "Well, I have a name tag on." Now he's 6 feet away from me, and I didn't have my glasses on, but I told him, I said, "Show me your name tag." Well, it was under his lapel. So he
Mm.
apologized. And then I remember my infectious disease specialist came back. And I thought, oh, I'm dying. I'm dying. He's come back. And he pulled up a chair and he sat down and he said, you know, you told me something that probably is the best advice I've ever gotten. He said, my ego thought you knew who I was and why I was there. And it never occurred to me you didn't. And so, and I was really firm on that. I wouldn't, once I could, I no, I'm not going to answer your questions. I'm also not going to take the drug. I'm not going to, there were times where they would appear with a drug, and I would say, "What's that for?" And they would say, "Oh, I don't know. So and so prescribed it." I said, "Well, if you can't tell me what it's for, I'm not taking it." And and other doctors would come in and say, "Why do you have all these pills lined up?" I don't know. Nobody could tell me what they were for. And so it's sometimes it's the little things that help us
Well,
get
it's
that control
always the little
back.
things,
Yeah.
isn't it, Deb?
Oh yeah.
But
Oh
it's
yeah.
also,
Mm-hmm.
just to unpack that story is
Mm-hmm.
that you're taking control back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even
But
little. Mm-hmm.
even
Mm-hmm.
small, small
Mm-hmm.
things that
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
feel
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
you are taking
Mm-hmm.
control
Right.
of this
Mm-hmm.
journey that we're
Mm-hmm.
going on
Mm-hmm.
and this
Mm-hmm.
is whether you have cancer or
Mm-hmm.
anything else.
Right. Life.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Mm-hmm.
and what I think is wonderful is you brought in a point that I think is really, really important here. And I have been through personal, extremely traumatic
Mm-hmm.
situations myself. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
cancer, thank you, God. And it's this concept of ego
Mm-hmm.
with that doctor
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
how you supported him
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
realize within himself
Mm-hmm.
that that broke
Mm-hmm.
the connection
Mm-hmm.
with his patients.
Right. Right.
So that
Yeah.
forever
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
changed
Right.
him
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because you stepped up to be
Mm-hmm.
navigating, being
Mm-hmm.
decided to take
Mm-hmm.
control of this
Mm-hmm.
journey that you are on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Right.
that is a
Right.
profound
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. There were a couple of times in the hospital, and then I had to go to a care facility afterwards because when you've been in the hospital that long, you have to learn how to walk again and do things like that. And there were several times where I complained, like major complain. And I told them, I said, you need to understand. It doesn't affect me as much as I'm saying. However, I'm not the only one that this is probably affecting. You have a lot of older patients here. You have a lot of people who will not speak up. And I said, so I'm going to tell you this is what is going on. And I actually had a nurse hurt me on purpose and not as part of, hey, we have to you push harder for physical therapy. No, she physically hurt me. I mean, like I could have had her arrested. And they asked me, they said, do you want us to do that? I mean, they knew how serious it was. And I said, no, you just make sure she never works with patients again. I have no idea if that, if they did or not. But I said, you need to understand. I was able to say, get your hands off of me. 90% of your other patients
No.
cannot do that.
Well, and you made a stand. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to
Mm-hmm.
state what you
Mm-hmm.
did.
Mm-hmm.
You took a stand really and a voice for the
Mm-hmm.
people who could
Mm-hmm.
not have a
Right.
voice for
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
you knew it was an
Mm-hmm.
injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And you had it, the courage and the
Mm-hmm.
confidence to really be an advocate
Mm-hmm.
for all the other older,
Mm-hmm.
mature,
Right. Mm-hmm.
not as resilient other
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
folks that
Mm-hmm.
maybe were going through the same.
Right.
Because when you
Mm-hmm.
go through cancer, I'm supporting someone right now intimately
Mm-hmm.
that's been through
Mm-hmm.
prostate cancer, and I'm his emotional resource in
Mm-hmm.
the last
Mm-hmm.
year and a half, almost
Mm-hmm.
2 years now, with,
Mm-hmm.
through radiation and everything, and it's hell.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that because I'm witnessing it
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know that when you go through
Mm-hmm.
cancer, you make the decision
Mm-hmm.
that you are going to take control back.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
Everything
Mm-hmm.
changes.
Yeah.
I'm witnessing
Mm-hmm.
it right
Mm-hmm.
now. We had a conversation yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to understand this. He just made a decision to not have the hormone therapy. He's
Mm-hmm.
going to see the
Right.
oncologist
Mm-hmm.
today in 30
Mm-hmm.
minutes
Mm-hmm.
to let him know.
Mm-hmm.
And I cried.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
cried on
Mm-hmm.
FaceTime because I'm so
Mm-hmm.
happy.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a
Mm-hmm.
period of time you can either navigate through the cancer
Mm-hmm.
the whole way through, being your own
Mm-hmm.
advocate,
Mm-hmm.
taking control,
Mm-hmm.
or you can sit back
Mm-hmm.
and not. So
Yeah.
I think the
Right.
power is in
Mm-hmm.
taking your
Mm-hmm.
own
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
control and being
Mm-hmm.
decided
Right.
that
Right.
you're a
Yeah.
part of this
Mm-hmm. Right.
process.
Yeah. I fired doctors during this process. And and it wasn't that they were incompetent. Most of the time they just didn't understand me. And I was having this discussion last week with someone, and they said, you might not like them, but you have to trust them. And I said, and you have to, especially when it's something long term like this, right? If it's your primary care that you see once a year, I'm not ever sure I remember what they look like, right? But yeah, if it's and I said, for somebody who's going to be taking care of you for a long time, you have the right to say who they are. I said because they work for you. And I said, and if it's not working out, you get a different person. And
Mm.
her response broke my heart. She said, you mean I can do that? And she's
So,
younger.
yes. And you know what?
Mm-hmm.
So, this is giving every listener
Mm-hmm.
right now a
Mm-hmm.
message to take those
Mm-hmm.
people that
Mm-hmm.
you love, cherish,
Mm-hmm.
and adore that are
Mm-hmm.
going through
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
horrific
Mm-hmm.
journey of cancer. You can tell them that they can give
Mm-hmm.
themselves
Yes.
permission
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
choose.
Mm-hmm. Right. Is it awkward? Is yeah. I mean, it's like firing an employee, right? We
Yeah.
don't like doing that, even if they've been incompetent. Um, but yeah, it's and I love my team. I mean, I'm down to just I think 4 doctors now. But like last week I had treatment. I am actually still in active treatment. I go in every 21 days. Like I said, I chose the traditional approach,
Yes.
which has turned out to be something very, very different from what anybody expected. But my treatment day last week, as we're recording this, was also my birthday.
Oh,
And of course they knew that because you go in and you have to tell them your
yes.
birthday 900
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Um, and so I stopped and I bought 3 dozen donuts.
Oh,
So a dozen was for the front desk, a dozen was for the people who
yeah.
draw the blood, and then the
Yeah.
treatment room, right?
Yeah.
And I told them all, I said, you all have kept me alive for 10 years. You
Mm.
deserve this.
Oh,
And they all just looked at me because now I've been going there 10 and a half years. I've never seen that. When I finished with radiation, I took them cupcakes. Now that actually, I see people do that more when it's their last whatever.
right.
And so, but yeah, show them because, like I said, they got really hard jobs with people
Oh, they do.
saying bad things and all sorts of stuff. And so, just show them the appreciation and tell the other people, hey, this person works for you. You need to know she does a really good job.
Yes. So, I mean, that's pouring love all over it. Let's be
Mm-hmm.
real here right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's showing your gratitude, which
Mm-hmm.
is grateful is right
Mm-hmm.
behind you. I love
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also expressing the level of appreciation you
Mm-hmm.
have for the care that they
Mm-hmm.
have provided for
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
because their job is hard. And there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people that
Mm-hmm.
are in a lot of fear and
Mm-hmm.
exceedingly
Mm-hmm.
emotional going
Right.
on that
Mm-hmm.
path. And they need
Mm-hmm.
love too.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
also,
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing that I want to bring in right now, which I
Mm-hmm.
love, is that whatever we give is truly the only thing that we get to receive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's
Right.
a circle of love.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
whatever I contribute and give
Mm-hmm.
is this
Mm-hmm.
glorious
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to receive the
Mm-hmm.
same.
Right. Yeah. I had a scan several weeks ago. I have scans, fairly often, blood work, all that good stuff, right? And this was somebody I hadn't had. And as we were walking out, we walked past this door that said manager. And I stopped. I said, "Are you her manager?" And you could see she got this, uh-oh.
I'm scared
And,
what you're going to
and
say.
yeah, she's like, and I told him, I said, "You need to know she did a really, really good job." And he said, "Nobody ever says that." I
Well,
said, "That's why I
it's
make a
so
point of doing it."
important
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because being a people want to be appreciated
Mm-hmm.
more than
Right.
anything else.
Right.
So
Yeah.
audience, listen up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have
Mm-hmm.
been to the cancer clinic. I have
Mm-hmm.
seen the extraordinary,
Mm-hmm.
dedicated
Mm-hmm.
human beings that
Mm-hmm.
serve
Mm-hmm.
my friend. And
Mm-hmm.
for all the men out there right now, listen to me, please. Get your PSA test
Yes.
taken
Mm-hmm.
every single
Mm-hmm.
year.
Mm-hmm.
One year it was 4, and the next year it was 10.7 for
Right.
him.
And
So you don't know, and he
right.
had no
Mm-hmm.
idea, no
Mm-hmm.
symptoms, no nothing.
Right.
So he
Mm-hmm.
also has had two friends that he really
Mm-hmm.
encouraged them to go get the test,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they both had it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
You
he
know,
saved
and
two of his
yeah,
friends' life.
yeah. With cancer, the biggest thing that is going to help determine your survival is how early it is caught.
Yes, yes,
And and it's that way with a lot of various illnesses, but with cancer especially. And of course the tricky thing is sometimes there are no symptoms, like with prostate cancer,
yes,
things like that, and so you don't know. And
no,
so that's why simple blood tests, mammograms, all those various things.
I
Are
go,
they
yeah,
annoying? Yes. Do we like having them done? No. I don't care,
yeah.
because the alternative is, not good.
No, 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 it isn't good. So tell me, what was behind the resistance
Mm-hmm.
of becoming known as the cancer girl? Like, what ultimately shifted your perspective of
Mm-hmm.
that?
Well, it was suggested to me by my absolutely fabulous business coach, who knows my whole story, and we were on a Zoom and we were talking business, right? And then she shook her finger at me, and I thought, oh, what did I do? And she said, you didn't go through everything you went through without using it to help others. I said, yeah, but I don't want to be cancer girl. Yes, I'm still in treatment. I still have to deal with this, but that's not what I want to be known for. And she just kind of looked at me, and I was like, ugh. And I mean, she didn't push any harder. And I thought about it, and I thought, they already call me in when it's a new patient. When they've got students, oh, they always like to bring me in when there's students that they're working with, right? And because I'm the I'm going to, in a good way, tell them things that they need to be hearing from the patient. One of which is, you ever call somebody by their diagnosis and you deserve to get smacked. Um, Oh, I had somebody do that. This is now. I've had three diagnoses. The first is stage 4 metastatic triple positive breast cancer. That's a mouthful, right? Then I had basal cell carcinoma. That sounds horrible. Yeah, that's your garden variety skin cancer, right? And I'm a redheaded, freckly kid. Um, but then it's been almost 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And one time when I was in for a checkup, they said, hey, the thyroid cancer is in room 4. And I went out and I said, excuse me. I understand HIPAA, which here in the United States is a privacy thing, right? And I said, so you can't yell out my name. Now they can't say your first name, it's because that's not really identifying you. But I said, please do not ever reduce somebody to just their diagnosis, because we
Oh,
are far
that's
more than
so
that.
good. Okay, so
And
that's
yeah,
also taking
mm-hmm.
control back.
Yeah, yeah. I am not the thyroid cancer patient in room 4. But I thought about what Kathleen Caldwell, my business coach, had told me, and I thought, she's right. How
Mhm.
can I help others?
Exactly.
And that was when we started trying not to die.live. Because we get so
Beautiful.
caught up in trying to not die that we forget that we have to live. And sometimes it's 5 hours, right? Sometimes it's 40 years. But
Mhm.
who knows? But how are you going to live during that time frame?
Yes. And choose to lead with
Mm-hmm.
love.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Choose to lead with
Mm-hmm.
curiosity
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
wonder and
Right. And donuts.
acceptance and donuts and trust and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
caring about others
Mm-hmm.
too and
Mm-hmm.
giving back,
Mm-hmm.
even
Mm-hmm.
when it's challenging for
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Right. Right.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love your story. I love who you are. And it's this is the essence of love
Mm-hmm.
inspired leadership. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't always begin where we think it's
Mm-hmm.
going to begin or land where we think it's going to
Mm-hmm.
land as an outcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Life is here to teach us.
Mm-hmm.
Life is here for us to make that clear and final decision that everything that happens to us in our life is for us,
Mm-hmm.
as
Right.
teaching us the
Mm-hmm.
lessons, the gifts,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to serve from your
Mm-hmm.
highest self. And
Mm-hmm.
that is what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. And thank God for your coach,
Mm-hmm.
because that changed the trajectory
Mm-hmm.
of how
Right.
you're showing
Mm-hmm.
up in the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I still have my business. I have my marketing firm that pays the bills. But yeah, it's there are things. How can we help? And sometimes it's simple, right? Simple, basic things. In the infusion room, usually I'm not the only one there. I mean, it's a big place. There's 30 chairs that are in there. I get up. Now, I'm a very mobile person, right? It's not like I'm attached to an IV or anything like that. And I'm always going and getting myself something to drink and cookies or whatever. Anybody I go past, do you need some? Can I get you something? And yeah, that's what the staff does. And of course, they figured out a long time ago I can help. I hated COVID because I couldn't do that, right? I could not touch somebody's, it's like, but yeah, if I can, if I, if the staff doesn't have to worry about getting Fred over there, his thing of water, then their time is better used helping. Now that
Yes.
is helping. I get that. But, can I help them help others?
Well, and it's also stepping outside of
Mm-hmm.
yourself to serve. And
Mm-hmm.
anytime that I have gone through really hard things,
Mm-hmm.
it's when I've made the decision to be kind, thoughtful,
Mm-hmm.
giving
Mm-hmm.
to another
Mm-hmm.
soul,
Mm-hmm.
that I feel better myself.
Right.
So
Right.
you
Mm-hmm.
received
Mm-hmm.
in your
Mm-hmm.
giving too,
Right.
there,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you navigate? Here's the big question for me.
Mm-hmm.
How did you navigate your business, which was
Mm-hmm.
running,
Mm-hmm.
going through stage 4
Mm-hmm.
cancer diagnosis? So what
Mm-hmm.
helped you continue to be
Mm-hmm.
this love inspired leader for your
Mm-hmm.
business
Mm-hmm.
too, while navigating this
Mm-hmm.
treatment uncertainty?
Mm-hmm.
So how did you do it?
Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's a personal choice for everybody, and it is hard to decide who to tell and how much to tell, because the first thing that they might say is, well, we don't, no, we don't want to work with you anymore, for whatever reason. Now, they might be saying you need to focus on yourself, right? Or maybe it's, you can't do our job, you can't do it. And so I was extremely fortunate. My clients were wonderful. And and I had to tell them, hey, there are going to be times where I'm dropped off the face of the earth. And and I said, and it's funny, I use Facebook to communicate a lot. And my clients are my Facebook friends, so they know. Now, I know for many people that is not what they want to do. They want to maintain their privacy. That's perfectly fine. But you want to control, there's that word again, the narrative. Because if you don't tell people at least something, they make it up. If I just started missing deadlines and not telling why, then first of all, I would deserve to be fired. But more importantly, they're going to say, "Oh, it's because," without ever knowing why. But yeah, I was very fortunate. In fact, it was so funny. Two of my clients, or one of my clients, actually was where I got my first round of COVID vaccinations way back then. They were still very hard to get here at just even your regular doctor. And for cancer patients, you would have thought we could have got them. No, this is a senior living community, and and so that's where I went and got my COVID shots. But yeah, my clients, they're and I've been very fortunate in that. And I tell people, whether it's clients, whether it's customers, staff, whoever, if they don't say, what can we do to help you through this, then you might not want to be working with them.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yes, 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 yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's come back to love again.
Mm-hmm.
What is love?
Right.
Love is
Mm-hmm.
patient,
Mm-hmm.
love is kind,
Mm-hmm.
love is
Mm-hmm.
thoughtful,
Mm-hmm.
love is accepting.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
because, well, I know this for a fact, that you provide such an incredible service and they appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
So they will stay with
Mm-hmm.
you through
Yes.
this
Mm-hmm.
process and
Mm-hmm.
transition,
Mm-hmm.
because they know your
Mm-hmm.
character, they
Mm-hmm.
know your integrity. So I just think that's beautiful. So do you have any systems or mindset shifts that you believe that every leader could put into place
Mm-hmm.
before
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
crisis
Right.
like this
Mm-hmm.
hits?
Mm-hmm. Well, many of them are simple, basic business things, right? Do you have a business continuity plan? And even if it is just you all by yourself, does somebody know who your clients are? Where's your bank account? I mean, all of those things, because we could get hit by a bus tomorrow, or heaven forbid, you want to go on vacation, right? But have you thought about things like, if a key member of your business is all of a sudden unable to perform their duties? Are those tasks written down? Are there things that absolutely positively must be done? Well, somebody needs to know how to do them. And of course the trick is, for all of this is in our head. We all, but hello, write it down. And you're not broadcasting it to the world, but the people who need to know that information. Delegate, which is really hard. Oh, I am a type A person. Yeah, and delegating is really hard for me. And but the other thing is, we work with, and I have a very large volunteer group that I also manage, in a totally different format. um, and I know that I have incredible volunteers. You also
Mm,
could have incredible employees, right? Give them the opportunity to shine by empowering them.
yes.
And I think that's one of the biggest things, is let them make the decisions.
Yes.
I do have a business podcast, and it's so funny because I had a guest on one time who told me, he has thousands of employees. It's a big company. And he said he knew he was truly a success when he went on vacation for 2 weeks and nobody called or emailed him.
Oof. How
Right?
absolutely magnificent. And that is
But
the
how
truth.
many times are we like, oh, but that means they don't need us. They don't love us.
Mm-mm,
No, it
mm-mm.
means you've got the right people.
Yeah. And it means that you trust them.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
means that you have empowered
Mm-hmm.
them to make their own
Right. Mm-hmm.
decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And it also means that you believe in them
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that you get to be the owner of this business
Mm-hmm. Right.
instead of
And
the
free
key
yourself
player.
up for other things.
Yeah.
I've recently come to the philosophy, and I've told several people this when they said, well, we don't know. What if this, I'm like, will somebody die? No? Okay, then it can be fixed. I mean,
Absolutely. It's the truth
mm-hmm.
because there's
Mm-hmm.
always a solution
Mm-hmm. Right,
and it's
right.
always available
Mm-hmm.
immediately.
And now here's the funny thing, and this is hard. This was really hard for me to learn. Somebody else's solution might actually be better than my solution.
Well, this has been the humbling journey I've been on my business. Is I
Mm-hmm.
did a love it and let go
Mm-hmm.
list. So I
Mm-hmm.
spent 2 months writing down
Mm-hmm.
everything that I'm in
Mm-hmm.
flow, that I have
Mm-hmm.
joy, that I
Mm-hmm.
love doing this podcast. I
Mm-hmm.
cherish, love, and
Mm-hmm.
adore having
Mm-hmm.
these
Mm-hmm.
conversations. You can tell.
Mm-hmm.
And then my let go list was admin,
Mm-hmm.
Canva,
Right.
all of that. So I
Mm-hmm.
hired someone for 4.5,
Mm-hmm.
almost 5 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
I call her my virtual assistant angel. She
Mm-hmm.
does everything for me.
Mm-hmm.
She does
Right.
everything I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to do, but I had the
Mm-hmm.
list ready when
Mm-hmm.
she showed up. But
Mm-hmm.
I made the
Right.
decision that I
Mm-hmm.
was willing to
Mm-hmm.
let
Mm-hmm.
go to
Mm-hmm.
lead.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of my phrases that
Mm-hmm.
pays. So
Mm-hmm.
the audience, you can write down,
Mm-hmm.
let go to lead. And that's in your
Mm-hmm.
life, that's in your
Yes.
business.
Mm-hmm.
And when you make that final
Mm-hmm.
clear decision
Mm-hmm.
to let things
Mm-hmm.
go is when you get more space for
Mm-hmm.
grace, more
Mm-hmm.
space for joy, more
Mm-hmm.
space for fun,
Mm-hmm.
more
Mm-hmm.
space for freedom.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's a fine line, and I just want to bring this in as
Mm-hmm.
we wrap here, is that there's a fine line between being in control of everything. We've
Mm-hmm.
talked about control a
Mm-hmm.
lot in this
Mm-hmm.
interview.
Mm-hmm.
Fine line between control
Mm-hmm.
and letting go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, I think we all, as human beings,
Mm-hmm.
need to be our greatest advocate
Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
take a stand for what matters most
Mm-hmm.
within our life, within
Mm-hmm.
our integrity, with what's right.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
also, there's so much that we can release
Mm-hmm.
and let go. So,
Mm-hmm.
what's your final
Mm-hmm.
word and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
perspective on control and letting
Mm-hmm.
go and that
Mm-hmm.
fine line.
I think the big thing is to recognize you are in charge. And and sometimes that is I'm in charge to say it's your responsibility, or I'm choosing this treatment, or whatever it is, but you are in charge. And I think that's sometimes hard for women,
Mhm.
and it's really hard when there's that person in that white coat who's gone to school for a bazillion years. No, you are in charge. You might still go with what they're suggesting, but it's your decision.
Yes, 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 yes. And I love this interview. Deb, I think you are one of these bright lights in the world that have brought your pain to purpose, that you
Mm-hmm.
have brought your purpose to a passion, that you have brought hope for people, that you are bringing these messages of truth to people. And, you know, I think about this incredible journey that you've been on over the last 10 years. And it's been a gift from God, I think, and a
Mm-hmm.
grace for
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
to just really learn to love yourself,
Mm-hmm.
to love the people in your
Mm-hmm.
life,
Mm-hmm.
and to really level up this love inspired
Mm-hmm.
leadership and
Right,
this
right.
light that you
Mm-hmm.
shine.
Right.
I think it's so
And it's
beautiful.
okay to gently let go of people, right? And
Yes.
sometimes maybe not gently. But yeah, there's so much ich in the world. No, we don't need all of that. As we're talking, the Olympics were last week. I
Mm,
love the Olympics. Sorry about the hockey. But
okay.
to see the love that they had, and all of those things, I mean, that was and the teamwork.
Yeah.
I want to leave this with folks. I have a tribe. I tell people I'm a warrior. I'm a cancer warrior. I'm in the fight of my life. And I know some people don't like those words because they're
True.
aggressive. Find what works for you, but you have to have your tribe. And they
Yes.
are the people that are going to support you. And they come, they go, you get the right people, and you give the others the grace to go and do something else. But you have no warrior ever, ever, ever stands alone.
Never, and you're never meant to do this
Mm-hmm.
alone, not in
Right.
life,
Mm-hmm.
not whether you have
Mm-hmm.
cancer, not
Mm-hmm.
whether you're running a business,
Mm-hmm.
whatever hardship,
Mm-hmm.
you're never
Mm-hmm.
meant to do it alone. And
Right.
there's someone that you're thinking of right
Mm-hmm.
now
Mm-hmm.
that could be part of, you call it your tribe. I call it my dream team.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Mm-hmm.
people that I call in when I am
Mm-hmm.
off the path
Mm-hmm.
that I call
Right.
thinking above the
Mm-hmm.
line
Mm-hmm.
is when I'm off the path and thinking
Mm-hmm.
below the line in fear,
Mm-hmm.
doubt,
Mm-hmm.
resentment, anger,
Mm-hmm.
regret, whatever
Mm-hmm.
the past, worrying about the
Mm-hmm.
future. I call in one of my
Mm-hmm.
dream team
Mm-hmm.
and I call in a lifeline and
Mm-hmm.
they tell me the truth. I
Mm-hmm.
get back on track within minutes
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it is a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
It is a lesson
Mm-hmm.
and it is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
So
It
I'm
is. Mm-hmm.
highly
Mm-hmm.
recommending the
Mm-hmm.
entire audience to build your tribe,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
build your dream team,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where miracles,
Mm-hmm.
that's where magic, that's where love lives.
Mm-hmm. It
And
does. Mm-hmm.
that is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And my aim high method is all about love. It's
Mm-hmm.
about truth,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
alignment, and
Mm-hmm.
radiance. We're all
Right.
here to
Mm-hmm.
shine our beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
loving light on the
Mm-hmm.
world because we all have a story too.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's about telling
Mm-hmm.
that story
Mm-hmm.
with conviction, with purpose and passion. And Deb,
Mm-hmm.
you got that nailed, girl.
Oh.
I love it. So I want to thank
Mm-hmm.
you for your
Oh,
story. I
thank
want to
you.
thank you for
Mm-hmm.
your wisdom, your
Mm-hmm.
humanity, your kindness, your generosity of spirit. Wherever you go, it is beautiful, and we can all be inspired by that. So tell us about how people can connect with you
Mm-hmm.
and your work.
Yep. It's very easy. Go to tryingnottoDie.live. That is the website URL. Yourcancercoach.live is also where, if you are an executive on this journey, where you can do that. You can Google me. There's, I think, 3 Deb Kriers in the whole world, right? I told you I was special. And I think I'm the only one with this red hair. So find me, reach out, and whatever I can do to help, just let me know.
Oh, beautiful. And for the audience, please do. I mean, Deb has answers. She's lived it. Those are the people that you want to talk to because she'll tell you the truth and she'll love you up too, guaranteed, because that's who she
Thank you.
is. That is her character. That is her integrity. That is her mission in life. That is her living legacy. So I also want to let the audience know once again that you can receive my 21 days above the line living. It's a sacred journey, listening to a 3-minute audio recording that I do in my pajamas in the morning after I do my journal. I give you reflections, I give you journal opportunities that you can look at. And here's my final question. How might love lead your next decision, even in uncertainty? So, Deb, thank you. Blessings to you, my
Oh,
dear.
blessings to
And
you.
and thank you for being on the Love Inspired Leadership Podcast. And to the audience, hey, I'm so happy that you're here. Please share this with many, many people because my intention is to bring this deep love to the world. And I appreciate your help. Until next time, I look forward to seeing you and hearing you on the Love Inspired Leadership Podcast. Take good care.